Alright guys, so I wanted to take a few minutes and talk to you about this recent check ride that I just failed, unfortunately. I know there's a lot of videos on YouTube about what to do to pass your check ride, what happens after you fail your check ride, and I just wanted to kind of share with you a little bit of my perspective and kind of what happened in my own check ride, maybe help prepare some of you guys for your private pilot check ride that's coming up. So, going to the beginning, the check ride started at about 8:30 in the morning. Number one miss on the check ride was I didn't have my IACRA application completed before the actual meeting. So that was the number one fail. That's okay, check ride. DPE was actually really good about it. She said, oh, don't worry about it. Let's just go ahead and fill it out real quick. Shouldn't take long. We got through it. All my logbooks and everything were put together and totaled up and everything already, so it was really easy just to put all the hours in. At this point, I had 44 hours in a C-150, which is what I took my check ride in. In case some of you are wondering, I'm 6'5" and 215 pounds, so I was limited to the DPEs that I actually could use just because of the overall gross weight maximum. So anyway, get the IACRA application done, go through the logs, engine logbook, airframe logbook, my logbook, make sure that I had all the requirements and everything, had all the ADs, everything was spot on, and I had gone through it a couple of days leading up to the check ride, making sure everything was good to go. DPE signs off on it, tells my CFI, cool, we're gonna go ahead and get this thing started. So official start time was actually at 9:45 for the actual test itself. Went through the ground portion, which covered all of your standards: aircraft systems, airspace, situational decision making, crew resource management, single pilot resource management, weather, deviations, flight plan, cross country, everything that you've pretty much prepared for in your ground school for your check ride. Nailed that part, got through it, and just absolutely smashed it. DPE was very pleased. Normally I hear people take about an hour and a half to 2 hours on the ground portion of it and then move on to the flight. Not sure if this was just my personal experience, but I actually had about 3.5 hours, almost 4 hours of the ground portion. So that was pretty brutal. I was definitely mentally exhausted by the time it was all said and done. But anyway, so we get through all of that stuff. DPE tells me, okay, perfect, we're gonna go ahead and take a 15-minute break, get prepared for the flight itself, and then we'll go pre-flight and then get through the whole thing. So fast forward, we're back at the plane now and going through the pre-flight. One of the things that I've always done on my pre-flight is make sure I have my checklist in hand for it, which I did. They wanted me to go through and basically explain everything that I was looking at, why I was looking at it, what happens again if this stops working, static port, pitot tube, this instrument stops working. So she actually continued the questioning even though we were already at the aircraft. So just keep that in mind. The questioning does not stop at the time that the ground portion is over. So anyway, we go through the pre-flight. The one thing that I almost missed was checking my actual lighting. Now, this was a day VFR flight, so everybody who knows the tomato flames and the flaps acronyms know that, there is some required equipment that's on there. We did have a pretty heavy traffic area. I was taken off at a Class D airport, CRQ, which is Carlsbad in San Diego County in California. And so we checked my nav lights, checked my landing light, checked my position lights, looked at my beacon, making sure everything was working, which actually is not part of my normal day VFR checklist, which now it is. So that was a learning that I took away from it. Make sure that you flip that master on and go ahead and do a quick walk around, make sure your lights are working, especially if you're dealing with anything that's close to the coast and you might deal with some haze or marine layer. You're going to want to pop those lights on and have as much visibility as possible. So obviously knowing that they work is a good thing. So anyway, go ahead and get ready to go, do the passenger briefing, let her know that I'm the pilot in command. Taught her how to use the seat belts, how to use the windows, how to use the door latches, went over any emergency equipment we had. In this particular aircraft, we didn't have a fire extinguisher, but being that my cross country had us going over the Palm Spring Mountains and the Anza Pass, I did bring some solar blankets, some water, a Leatherman, a couple of of other items. You know, just in the event that we did have a forced landing out in the mountain ranges, we had what we needed to survive. So DPE was very pleased to see that I had brought that. And so anyway, get through all of that and start taxiing. Make sure that you have your taxi diagram on your lap, whether it be through ForeFlight, whether it be a printed chart. I recommend having both. They might fail your iPad as part of the examination, so it's always good to have a redundancy backup there. So anyway, so when you're taxiing, make sure that your eyes are outside of the actual cabin at all times. You're looking for any possible runway incursions, listening for ATC instructions. Obviously, make sure you get your clearances and your weather and everything before you start moving. Check those brakes. Make sure that you do that first, which again, anybody who's actually prepped for this has already gone through the ACS, hopefully, and they're already prepared for this part of it, but just some points to hammer on that the DPE really wanted to see. So we get up to the hold short line. It's taken probably about 20 minutes or so while departing traffic is getting moving. Again, a busy Saturday afternoon. Not necessarily my recommendation to take off in a Class D on a weekend. So if you do have the option, which I didn't in this case just because of work schedules and everything else, try to do it midweek. It'll just help lighten your load, and there's a lot less traffic separation, and you'll be more likely to have an easier time, less altitude restrictions, things like that. So DPE tells me that we're going to go ahead and do a short field takeoff to start, unless we're given the instructions for an immediate takeoff. So I start my short field takeoff. Line up, much runway as possible, brakes set, power set, oil pressure's good. We take off down the runway, center line, everything looks fantastic. We take off. So all goes great. Start our climb. ATC gives us an instruction to turn an early right crosswind and stay at or below 1,000 feet for incoming traffic on a 3-mile westerly heading. And so I end up having to essentially lower my nose in my climb and stay at below 1,000 feet on my way to my cross-country first checkpoint. Had everything programmed into the GPS, had it programmed into my iPad, plus had my Navilog on my lap as well too. So I had all of the pieces that I needed in order to navigate this flight. Ended up taking off towards the Vista intersection, for those of you that are familiar with the area, and which essentially is right above the Vista High School. And the examiner asked, how are you going to know that you've reached your first checkpoint? And so pointed to the GPS, say I've got it programmed here, I've got it on my iPad, I've got it on my chart, I know exactly how much time it should take based on my calculations and the wind. Granted, the wind was different than the day that I had actually planned my flight for. It was about a week prior to the actual check ride that I got my instructions for the cross country. But I also said there's a pilotage point as well too, which is the high school. She was really glad to see that I had all of these elements put together. So just some advice for you guys if you're looking to take off on that cross-country plan. So we go through all the standard ACS maneuvers: slow flight, power on stalls, power off stalls, steep turns, S-turns, emergency descents, simulated engine failure, simulated over voltage warning light, and a diversion as well. Everything went great. It was actually somewhat of a windy day. It was 11 knots, gusting 19, so it wasn't ideal for that small of a plane. Anybody who flies that C-150, they know it's like a kite up there. So definitely, you know, if you're not comfortable with the current conditions, make sure that you call that flight. It is okay to discontinue your flight and try again. Do not put yourself at a disadvantage. You've worked so hard to get to this point. You put all the hours in. The last thing that you want to do is get a disapproval because the weather wasn't working in your favor. So just some 2 cents there. In my personal situation, I had flown this plane with the loading configuration that we had in that similar weather multiple times leading up to it, and had done maneuvers in that air, so I felt comfortable with it, so we proceeded. We come on back to the airport after all of the maneuvers are taken care of, and told to do a normal landing on the first one and to give her my aim point. So gave her my aim point, which is a second stripe. I aimed for the numbers just so that way I can bleed off some speed. Touchdown happened to be right in the middle of the second stripe, so that was perfect. Not my smoothest touchdown, but it was sufficient, and it was safe, and it was straight, and it was down the center line with no side drift, and so she seemed pleased with it. So she tells me to go ahead and do a touch and go. And ATC actually squashed that and told me to go ahead and exit November and taxi back for takeoff. So we did that. Next one, she tells me, go ahead and do a soft field takeoff. So at this point, this is actually where I started to get the idea that I was on the track for a disapproval, unfortunately. During my training time, in the C-150, this is again a 1975 C-150 M model, so Mike, and this particular flap settings passage has some loose language in there as far as flap configurations for soft field and short field. Uses words like if, or the advantage is lost in the climb, but doesn't have a real clear-cut checklist like 10 degrees flaps, set your RPMs at 2,500, brakes on, release brakes, and so forth. So anyway, it was kind of a subjective piece for the flap settings, and so when my instructor and I, as well as the owner and other pilots that I had flown with in my training hours, we had interpreted that to actually have a 10-degree flap deflection for short field and no flap deflection for soft field, just because of the 50-foot obstacle issues in soft field. So again, there might be some comments about those that have flown this plane and know better. I fully own the mistake at this point. Anyway, go to do my soft field takeoff, no flaps, takeoff, again, lifted up just at about VX, remained in ground effect until I accelerated, and then continued my climb at VY. So she asked me, why didn't you use flaps for soft field? And I said, well, actually the POH doesn't call for it. She says, are you sure? And I said, yeah. And I said, my instructor and I even thought that was weird because aerodynamically, we know that the coefficient of lift goes up when you have a 10-degree deflection, which again lightens the main loads and essentially allows you to take off at a slower ground speed, which is why you remain in ground effect on a soft field takeoff. So I was able to answer the aerodynamic reasons behind it and how we had thought that it was weird. And so I see this look on her face, and I pretty much knew at that point that I was screwed. So next words out of her mouth were probably some of the most painful words I've ever heard in my life. But and she even told me, she goes, this is going to be painful for me to tell you, but I have to disapprove of that last maneuver. My heart just sank into my stomach. Hours and hours and hours of preparation, months of flying, months of preparation for this, and it comes down to the last 15 minutes of this this exam, and I get a disapproval. So she tells me, we can either continue the flight at this point, or we can discontinue. You can come back, we can retest on the remaining pieces. All I had left to do was a short field landing, a forward slip to landing, and I was done. So literally, no joke, last 15 to 20 minutes of this exam, and I blew it. So we go back to the FBO, talk to my CFI. She tells me that there was some problems, and my CFI looks at me and says, well, that's how we trained. And I said, I know, and that's how I understood it. But I did not take the cue from the examiner at that point when she said, are you sure? Are you sure? I mean, she asked me, she really did give me a chance to correct it, and I made the mistake of not taking that chance and reviewing the POH one more time, getting clarification for it. So long story short, here's my learning. If for any reason you are going through your POH and you have any questions at all about any of the procedures, the flap configurations, the loading charts, the weight and balance, the performance charts, anything that you have a question about during your training, bring it up. Ask your DPE. Just say, hey, during my training days, these are some of the things that we had found to be a little strange. I want to make sure I know what you're looking for today, so that way I can perform the maneuver to your expectations. This is how I understand it. Do you have the same understanding? Didn't do that. So I plan on taking this all the way through to my ATP rating and trying to make a transition in my career to become a commercial pilot and professional aviator. And so this is not going to be my last check ride. Is it unfortunate that I have a failure on my record now? Yes. Am I able to own it and learn from it and walk away with some changes? Yeah, I am. And so I think that as much as heartbreak has set in for me, it has definitely been a learning experience. So what happens next? So basically, I've got 60 days to retest with her. I've got to go and do 2 takeoffs, so I've got to redo my soft field, redo my short field, and then do my short field landing and my forward slip to landing, and then I'm done. So as long as I perform those maneuvers to her specifications and to her approval, I'm gonna walk away with my pilot certificate. So unfortunately, weather right now is not in my favor. Of course, right after my check ride, I've got a bunch of rains, thunder, lightning, all this stuff coming into the area, which is not normal weather for us, but it is the transition into winter time here on the coast. And so I have to go back up with my examiner, retest those areas, get a sign off in my logbook saying that I'm proficient in the areas that I've been found deficient and failed in the private check ride. And then I can go back, file a new IACRA application, which I'll have done this time before we go into the exam, and then retest. And so I just wanted to go over that with you guys, just so you have an idea of, first of all, what you're gonna expect to experience on your check ride, what you should do if you have any questions that are still up in the air when it comes to the procedural pieces of your particular aircraft that you're gonna be flying, and also what happens. I've talked to a number of pilots, those who are captains for American, Delta, Southwest, other CFIs, the owner of the aircraft. A lot of them seem to be under the same impression that I am, and my instructor was at the time, that those flap settings were essentially a decision that the PIC gets to make based on the small amount of effect of that 10-degree deflection. But at the end of the day, DPE is the judge, jury, and executioner. So I have to abide by what they say and essentially perform to their expectations. A failure, again, not something I wanted to have on my record, especially going into an interview. That's the last thing that you want to have to tell someone, is that you failed a check ride. But do not lie about it. Own it. Tell them what you learned. And you're not the only person who's failed a check ride, especially in their, path to becoming a commercial aviator. Don't make a habit of it, of course. Again, learning from these things is really important, but it's not the end of the world. A couple of the captains I've spoken with had actually failed check rides. They failed their instrument the first time, or they failed their commercial the first time. And so, again, this is not something that is, so rare, but it should be something that you do everything in your power to try to avoid. So, anyway, guys, that's my story. That's my experience. I'll give you an update video as soon as I actually acquire that ticket. As of right now, I'm still a student pilot. I've got a total of 46 hours on this aircraft, so I know I'm testing pretty early in regards to hours on the actual flight training path. But I feel confident that I'll be able to go back and perform those maneuvers, get my pilot certificate, and start moving on towards my instrument rating in the future. So. Hopefully you guys like this video. There's going to be a lot more of these to come. I will be starting a flight vlog of some of my adventures and my path on my way to becoming a commercial pilot. So please, if you like this video, if it was helpful at all, go ahead and smash the like button, subscribe to my channel, and please leave any comments or questions that you guys have, or anything that you'd like me to talk about in future videos, and I would be more than happy to make those for you guys. So I hope everybody has a great day today, and fly safe out there.